The strongest addiction is the addiction of identity. That's the hardest one to break, right? My thoughts, my feelings, my story, right? That ownership, that attachment. Now, if we can root ourselves in the present and these things pop up, thoughts, emotions, feelings, cravings, they pop up, there'll be the tangible recognition that you're something other than those things. And once you recognize that you're not those things, they won't rule your life. It's very simple to bust through this, okay? You just don't give in to the craving. Whatever that craving is. I've worked with people that crave the sense of failure. So they give themselves opportunities so they can quote unquote fail, so they can stay limited within the ego mind identity. So Guy, the remedy when the craving kicks in, right, is to simply realize that you're the awareness of the craving, not the craving. Now, as the craving comes up for whatever it is, doesn't matter. As that craving comes up, if you meet the craving with pure presence, meaning just observe it, just watch it. The I am is so powerful and so high frequency that it will alchemize the craving if you sit in the I am long enough. And this is how we can overcome depression, anxiety, sugar, makes no difference. When we operate this way, this is actually how we can transcend all of that by meeting it with pure presence, which will alchemize the craving, and you will liberate yourself from the self-sabotage that has led up to the reverse dopamine hit, which keeps us going back into the limited self. Our habits, right, become our addictions. Because it's our energy that are stuck to these things. There's substitute gratifications for the fullness of the I am. Okay, that's really what they are. And I don't care what the addiction is: food, sex, smoking, whatever. It's substitute gratification for the fullness and the completeness of what you already are, have always been, and forever will be. So what you said, Peter, is exactly right. So if we have an addiction, again, to what, it doesn't matter, because none of it's you. Okay, so the craving comes, right? We start to feel the craving. Peter's already done it, right? Just don't react to the craving. You don't need to. Just be aware of the craving. For whatever the craving's for, it's irrelevant. I promise, it's irrelevant. Become aware of the craving and sit in the awareness of the craving. And just like we talked about before, eventually it's going to leave you because it's a substitute gratification. As you sit in the awareness is the mighty I am. It is the presence. We're trying to get to that through the substitute gratification. Food, smoking, sex, drugs, adrenaline, whatever, right? We're trying to get to the fullness of the self through the substitute gratification. So if you sit in the awareness, the fullness of the I am starts to become tangible, and the allure of the substitute gratification just starts to die off. And now all of a sudden, the pull of the craving loses its sway over your consciousness and your body of energy. And just like we talked about earlier before, right? We let these things come up. We talked about emotions, right? Who's the one that's sad, etc. Right? These things start to come up. So instead of acting on it and getting the substitute gratification, which keeps it in place, we let these things come up and they just start to leave. Sitting in the awareness of the craving, whether it's smoking, food, sex, adrenaline, drugs, who cares? Don't react to it. Sit in the fullness of the awareness of it. And I promise you, it will alchemize and completely cut off the energetic attachment. That's exactly what happens. And these processes that humanity has been brainwashed and going into about, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to see the therapist, and you have to. No, you don't. You are the healer. You are the master. All we needed was proper education. That's all. Look how simple these things are, because this is the truth, right? And the truth doesn't require your participation, right? So this is you just aligning with awareness, which is what you are. Sit in the awareness. The craving will die off. The allure of the substitute gratification will no longer be intoxicating to you. And you will have self-control and self-discipline once again.
Well, we will get into later all of the things, RJ, because there's so much more to unpack. But I just want to hit the tip of the surface right now and let you know what I really saw as the correlation between what you guys, the discussion you and Jeff Mara were talking about, and how that applies to people who might be watching this video. What you talked about was, you said that karma is the addiction and the attachment to anything low frequency. And you likened it to Spider-Man and his webs, and that his webs, once he's there, are stuck. And that's how we are with addiction. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. A silly analogy, but
it worked.
Yeah, it gets the point across, right? Exactly. Okay, so when we talk about karma, okay, karma, as you just said, at least from my perspective, is the addiction or attachment to anything here. Okay, and as you said, we use a Spider-Man and the spider web. Once he has attached himself to something, he's not going anywhere. He's now attached to that. Now, how this applies to us in terms of our evolution, in terms of our state of being, our state of consciousness, and our health, is that an attachment is done with our energy. Okay, so Spider-Man shoots a spider web, right? And it's a spider web. But when a human being becomes addicted or attached to something, it's through the identification. They see themselves as part of the thing, and it's their energy that is stuck to the thing, if that makes sense. Whatever the thing is, it doesn't really matter. So addiction and attachment has to do with identification. We lose ourself in the thing, whatever the thing is, and what's actually keeping us stuck or attached to the thing is our energy. Now, this energy is not energy that we would be able to see with our five physical senses, and therefore we wouldn't be able to make sense of it intellectually, because the intellect can only work based upon the data stream that comes in through the five physical senses. That being said, from a higher state of consciousness, we can actually see these things through our third eye or spiritual eye, however you want to say that. And there are literal energetic cords that we make to things. So, I'll give another silly analogy or silly example, which will hopefully hit home for people. So let's say, Emily, we're watching a scary movie, right? Okay. So we're sitting in a seat and there's something being projected on a screen, right? 20 feet away, 40 feet away, 50 feet, whatever it is, right? Okay. So if we're watching a scary movie and we let ourselves get caught up in it, okay, we start identifying with what's going on. Like, we're the one trapped in the house and the bad guys in the house, whatever it is, right? So if we start to identify with what's going on with the screen, what's actually happening is, by giving something our attention is energy. Whatever you give attention to, you're actually giving energy to. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if your attention is on the screen, this is the spider web. So our attention is now on the screen. There's an actual cord of energy. Our five senses are never going to see this. There's an actual cords of energy that are going to the screen. And once you're attached to the screen, whatever happens on the screen, you then experience, because you're connected energetically. That's why something scary happens on a screen and you shake in your chair. How is that possible? Metaphysics, we just explained how. So it's energy that is attached. So addiction, karma, attachment comes from our energy being stuck to something because we've identified, we've lost our true self, we've lost ourselves in the movie, we've lost ourselves in the incarnation, we've lost ourselves in the food and the drink and the gambling and the sex and the whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We've lost our sense of self in it, and our energy is stuck to it. And this is why we have such a problem moving past it, because energetically we've made an attachment to it. And the only way to overcome this is to realize the truth. And the truth is that you're the awareness of whatever it is that you're attached to or addicted to. You are the awareness of it, not what you're aware of. You are the awareness itself. And when you start to reside or sit, if that makes sense, within pure awareness, and you can think of that as meditation. When you start to sit in the fact that you're aware of the craving, You're aware of the longing. You're aware of the desire for something. But you sit in that awareness long enough, what happens is the spider web withers and dies.
Mm.
The key is to sit in it long enough to realize the truth and to break the addiction. So what's really happening is the cord of attachment, watching the scary movie, right? Something happens on the screen and we get scared, right? That's because we're attached to it. But if you just sat there long enough at the movie theater and you stopped identifying with what's going on and you just watched it dispassionately, or you just observed it like it's a boring movie, then what happens on the screen won't affect you, because metaphysically what's happened is your energy has come back to you because you're no longer identifying with it. So as your energy comes back to you, what happens on the screen doesn't affect you. So in terms of an addiction, it works the exact same way. Metaphysics is metaphysics. The truth is the truth. As you sit in the awareness of this, eventually you'll realize that you're not the craving. You're aware of the craving. And once you become aware of the craving, you don't have to act upon it. And over a period of time, the craving or the addiction or the attachment will literally wither away and die.
Wow. And isn't that so funny that we turn to the comfort food to kind of like numb out? Like we turn to it, the sugar and the processed foods to numb us. And what we need to be doing is to be aware, not numb.
Yeah, that's exactly right. By numbing it, we'll just continue. Numbing is kind of like just treating a symptom. It's not going to the root cause, right? You could even say, this is kind of sort of the paradigm of Western medicine, right? We simply treat something. We never actually cure it. There's no actual remedy. We're managing symptoms. We are emotionalizing. We're eating to sort of soothe ourselves. We're not really understanding what it is that we're upset about. We're covering it up. And it's always some form of identification, and identification with an event, an identification with a belief, an identification with a bodily sensation, an identification with a concept, an identification with a so-called trauma. Okay. Now, it's the identification with it is losing yourself in it. Once you lose yourself, you have no more power. So the key is to your energy coming back to you through detachment. Energy is power. So if you want to become incredibly powerful and overcome any addiction, any karma, any attachment, you have to sit in the awareness long enough so that your energy starts to return. Just like watching the movie, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm not going to get caught up in this thing. I'm just going to watch it dispassionately. Your energy actually returns to you. And when you get that kind of distance from your attachment, from your addiction, from whatever it is, or from whomever, your energy starts to return to you and you actually start to empower yourself. And once you've empowered yourself, you can now do whatever it is that you need to do to overcome whatever it is that you need to overcome.
Absolutely. And I wrote a note from the Jeff Mara podcast, and you said it's addicting when we identify with it, and that slows down our consciousness.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So when we lose ourself, remember, we're the awareness, and the awareness is untouched. The body mind is affected by what goes on here, but not awareness. How can awareness or pure perception be affected by anything, right? And the analogy that I often use, Emily, is the sun, right? Now, the sun actually gives birth to everything here. Without the sun, there would be no life. There'd be no trees. There'd be nothing. There'd be no planet Earth that needs the sun. But oddly enough, no matter how bad the weather is, rain, sleet, snow, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, doesn't matter what it is. Does any of this touch the sun? No, it doesn't affect the sun at all. Now, we are the sun. You could think of it as your soul, as your consciousness, whatever word you want to use is fine. But what we are is the sun, and it is untouched by whatever goes on with body mind. Completely untouched by that. And meditation, authentic meditation, gives us the tangible experience of this. It's just not some weirdo talking about it. It gives us the tangible experience of this complete detachment and this self-awareness. And when you become fully aware of the self, you realize that you're not those other things. You reside and marinate within the self, and you tangibly realize that you're the awareness of everything. And none of this stuff actually affects you. Just like the sun is not affected by the bad weather. And I don't care how bad it is. And so anyone who's watching and listening, your core, your soul, your essence, your sentience, your consciousness, whatever word you want to use, is untouched by the human condition. The body-mind is part of and attuned to this environment. The body-mind is affected by what goes on here because it's part of physical reality. What you are is beyond physical reality. So at your core, you are unaffected, you are untouched, you are unsullied, you are perfect. And the more that we can tangibly start to experience this, the more that we'll transcend any issue, any problem, any attachment that we ever have, anytime, no matter how bad it is.
Well, and I feel like sometimes when I'm talking to my clients, they're identifying with this illusion. They're identifying with, I'm an addict. I'm a sugar addict. I am, lazy. I am this. I can't meditate. They're identifying with these things. And I'm like, no, I see you. You're brilliant. You have so much wellness and health inside of you. It's just covered up by some layers right now. And we just got to get to that true identity inside of you.
You got it. That's the key. I'd like to say is that the soul is the cure for all that ails humanity. Right now, it's realizing that we're the awareness of the thought, of the emotion, of the bodily sensation, of the craving, we're the awareness. We're untouched by it. The sun is untouched by the bad weather. We are untouched by it. The longer that we can sit in the awareness, the more that we'll break free of all our disharmony. And this includes sickness, disease, ill health, even aging, which I haven't gotten into at all. But even aging can be greatly slowed down. It has to do with maintaining a high frequency state of consciousness and state of being, right? So we can really do anything if we have the proper foundation and the proper understanding of that we are the sun, that we're untouched by what goes on here. But when we lose ourselves in the bad weather and we think it's never going to stop raining, or the sun's never going to come out again. Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Just be patient, relax, and eventually the clouds will disperse and you'll see the sun again. And it's the same with yourself. If you can let the cravings and the addictions and the identifications eventually just float away, because they will. If you can sit in the state of being present long enough, all of that stuff will actually leave you because it doesn't belong to you. And once it leaves you, you'll realize the truth that you're perfect exactly as you are.
Yeah, and I love the second grade over analogy, where you say that the higher mind starts to flower, and we are more capable of not partaking, and then we are no longer stuck. And so we're not taking second grade over and over and over again. And I think so many people in this diet culture, they're like, I've been dieting since I was 10. And they feel like they're taking second grade over and over and over again. But as the higher mind starts to take over and you're able to just not partake, even if you just start with a little bit, I didn't partake. Instead of having 10 diet sodas today, I had 9. And I tell my clients, I'm so proud of you. That's huge. And they're like, no, 9 diet sodas is horrible. And I'm like, but it's better than 10. Like, you got to start somewhere so that you can operate in that success and realize how much you are capable of, and then build.
You got it. All right. What is the saying? The journey of a 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Yeah.
Right? Or something like that, right? Absolutely. If we're stuck on 10 sodas or whatever it is, and we cut that back, that's tremendous progress. That's tremendous. And that's how it starts. It starts that way. No one goes from 10 to 0. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't need to work that way. Okay. There's no such thing as failure. It's only delayed success. Okay. And when we start to understand our own timeless nature, We'll start to work with the concepts of success and failure very differently. We'll stop putting so much self-judgment and pressure on ourselves and realizing that one step forward is monumental. It literally is. And that one step forward is how we learn not to have to take second grade over and over and over again.
Exactly. And I love how you talk about that the ego mind and meditation cuts off the supply of energy to whatever it is. And as you said, with that cording, whenever you can stop, whatever you can do to cut that off, it stops feeding that. And then you are able to break free.
Yeah, this is a monumental paradigm shift for human consciousness to start to understand how things work this way. You can think of symptoms of illness as like a computer program running. Okay, now how do we stop a computer program from running? We cut off its energy supply. We unplug it. Right? Okay, so meditation stops the disharmonious thought patterns that are running. Now, there's no energy for your disharmony to keep running on if your mind is completely clear. Everything stops. Everything. And in that comes self-awareness. And as you start to become self-aware, you start to gain self-control. As you start to gain self-control, you start to gain self-discipline. And once you gain self-discipline, self-realization is around the corner. So it does start with 10 sodas to 9 sodas. It does start with 5 minutes of meditation. It does start with just an inch of separation between you and the thing. And to realize that you're the awareness of it, and you don't have to do anything with that. You're just the awareness. The sun doesn't have to do anything about the bad weather. The bad weather is going to stop eventually, and it doesn't affect the sun. You don't have to give in to cravings. You do not have to identify. It's a lie. It's a falsehood. And the more that we can sit in the awareness of that, the better that we'll feel. And as soon as we start operating that way, it's tangible. People start to feel better right away. And one of the most important things, at least from my perspective, is the ability to be present, or what we call meditation. Now, I can't tell you, Emily, how many thousands of people I've worked with, and most of them say the same thing when it comes to meditation. RJ, I have tried, and I cannot meditate. And they have tried. They absolutely have tried. They're not, and they'll tell me about their incense, and they got their headphones, and they got their crystals, and and I love all those things, by the way. So that's all fine, right? Okay. That stuff's got nothing to do with meditation. Okay. It's got nothing to do with meditation. All right. So I like to say that what we really are, the self, the soul, consciousness. I use the word the self. The self is meditation because we exist prior to thought. Okay, so what that means is that it's our natural state to be in meditation, and you don't have to do anything for it. So just sit with that for a second. It's our natural state, and you don't have to do anything to achieve meditation. You already are meditation at your core. You exist before there's a thought, before emotions. You exist before the body, all of that. Okay.
It's your inner clarity.
Yeah, it's what we really are, the awareness of everything. We talked about the awareness of everything before, not what you're aware of, that you're the awareness. Meditation is the awareness of everything, and the awareness exists before there's a thought. So this is very important to understand, and also the effortless nature of true meditation. And we can do one of them right now. So I teach this to everybody. I teach this to little kids. I teach this to people in their 80s and 90s. And everyone can do it because it's our true nature, and it takes 1 second. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So this is what I call a magic trick. And when I say magic, I mean magic with a CK, not magic with a C, like 3-card Monte or pick a card, any card. I'm not talking about that kind of magic. I'm talking about real magic. Now, real magic, to me, is the accessing and utilization of energies that lie outside of physical sensory perception. That's magic. That is also metaphysics. Okay, so real magic and metaphysics are the exact same thing. They're just two different words to explain the same process that goes beyond our five physical sensory perception. Now, I make no bones about it. I do magic. I understand metaphysics. So let's do magic right now. Okay. So meditation in 1 second. All you have to do is pretend that your physical eyes are not connected to your brain. And you can't think. You don't even have to.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you don't even have to close your eyes, Emily. In fact, open your eyes and look at me.
My eyes are not attached to my brain.
Correct. And now you can't think. Okay. So look at, and this is why I say it's real magic. Now what's happened? There's a couple of things, and let me just explain, because I think it's important to understand metaphysically and energetically what actually, just happened, so to speak. Okay, number one, that is real magic. So we went from the paradigm before was, I've tried and tried and tried to meditate. I've tried for years and years and years. I can't do it. I can't stop thinking, RJ. Now you went from I can't stop thinking to you can't think in 1 second.
I couldn't even breathe. I was like, right.
Right. Okay. So look at the gigantic paradigm shift that just happened from I can't stop thinking to I can't think in 1 second. Now also know, and this is what I mean about real magic. Now also notice that what we just did doesn't require an effort. You didn't have to strain or try or concentrate or lock yourself in your room and put on your headphones and light your incense. I
didn't even have to close my eyes.
That's right. So now this is what I mean about meditation. We are meditation. The self is meditation. We exist prior to thinking. Thinking is downstream. So we're this pure awareness that has nothing to do with thinking. And one of the magic tricks for humanity to experience this magic instantaneously is to simply pretend that your physical eyes are not connected to your brain. Now that stops the thought process because it stops the analyzation and judgment of phenomena, whatever it is that our five senses are picking up. We normally just constantly analyze, and that's what the rational thinking mind does. The higher mind has no use of that. So meditation is accessing and connecting with our own higher mind. We are our higher mind. This is what we truly are. That's creativity. That's imagination. That's the true connection to the source field, to God, to source, to creator, whatever word you want to use, doesn't matter. It's through the higher mind is the connectivity. The rational thinking mind is what fragments, compartmentalizes, and separates what is eternally whole. And that's what thinking is. So we have to be able to overcome that. And now we can overcome it in 1 second by using real magic. Now, what we don't see that's happening when we do these magic tricks. In the book, there's got tons and tons of magic tricks. It's like I said, I do magic. I love magic. Okay. So what's happening energetically, which our five senses don't see, is that thinking it's a circular profile. It's essentially energy that is trapped in our memory bank. So thinking is simply the flipping through the Rolodex of past impressions. That's what thinking is. It's flipping through the Rolodex of past impressions. And it's an electrical movement in a circular profile around what's called the mental body. Okay. So all that aside, that's what's actually happening. Now, all that aside is when we do the two eyes not connected to your brain, what actually happens is the energy that we normally have circulating nonstop in our mental body in the circular profile, trapped in the same room, running around and around and around. When you do the magic trick, what actually happens, if we could see these things, the energy that's normally in your mental body literally just drops down like water draining from a bathtub. So all of a sudden, all electricity stops because there's a disconnection and the energy drops down. And now you can't think because there's no energy in the mental body to run its circular profile, which is flipping through the Rolodex of past impressions, which is really what thinking really is. So these magic tricks stop that process and they return your awareness to the self, to pure perception, being simply aware. And this awareness, this pure perception is what exists. It's what we are prior to creating a thought or prior to emotionalizing or prior to animating the body. And it's in that state of consciousness where self-repair, self-healing, and believe it or not, self-realization, which is authentic enlightenment, that is the genesis for all three of those things, is that state of consciousness.
Wow. 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 And then there was another word that you said that I had to look up the definition of, is you said our sentience is what allows us to break free. And I looked it up. Sentience is being able to perceive or feel things. And I think so many times, especially with breaking addictions, we want to think our way through it. I'm going to a party, and so I'm going to think about what I'm going to do what I'm going to eat at that party, and I'm not going to eat the cake. I'm not going to eat the sugar and the processed food. I'm going to think ahead of time, and I'm going to pack some, nutrient dense, foods for me to bring to my thing. But you say that it's our sentience that allows us to break free.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So yeah, one of the pitfalls of the 21st century is the idea that the intellect is going to free us. It's actually the intellect that entraps you. So like I said, thinking is a circular profile. It's kind of like running around the garage looking for the kitchen sink. It's just not in there. It's just not in there. So really what we have to do is return to that meditative state. Now, what the meditative state gives us full access and dominion of our sentience. Now, sentience is what we really are. Okay, sentience is our amount, our weight, believe it or not, our level of love and wisdom. And that's what we really are. And the subsets of those things are what we call our talents and abilities. That's what we really are. We are sentience. Sentience is an indirect fractal of God. And that's what we all are. Now, that sentience is given energy in order to create. That is the energy that we use to think, to emote, to animate our body, and to create experiences. Now, sentience, our divine intelligence, our level of love and wisdom, it's through pure awareness or observation that action actually takes place. It is the activation of our divine intelligence, which is why there is no need to figure anything out. By simply being in observation, you will know what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, and who to say it to at all times. The sentience, the soul, the higher mind, the consciousness, whatever word you want to use, knows. The rational thinking finite mind doesn't know anything. The reason why the mind constantly wants more and more information is because it doesn't know anything. It just memorizes. So all it does. So we have to put that to bed through being present, through doing a magic trick, any magic trick, but doing a magic trick. So the sentience, the divine intelligence, the pure awareness, and woven into your awareness, woven into the screen of your consciousness is your depth of love and wisdom. And that is the only thing that anyone ever needs. The more you put to bed your rational thinking mind, which is always just a reactionary state to things, the more power and control you're going to have over yourself, because the self is sentience. And now we come back to self-control, self-awareness, self-discipline, self-realization, self-healing, self-repair. It all spawns from that state of consciousness, which starts with non-thought. That's the key.
So then how do we work with the egoic mind? Because obviously we need an ego, but like the kind of way, the conclusion I came to on my own journey was that I was chemically dependent upon the way I think, which was keeping an environment, my body stuck in an environment, just like sugar. You know, there's a comfort I'm getting from that, even though I know it's not serving me. And every time I try to break the cycle, you might do it for a day or two, the craving's kicking, and you're back. You know, hence why people gossip, hence why people put other people down. Like there's a feeding mechanism. That's how I kind of interpret it within ourselves. That's keeping us stuck in those states. And the moment we try breaking those cycles, It's hard.
Okay. So first, Guy, you're brilliant. Okay. So what I call this, what you just explained,
Mhm.
just what I call it is a reverse dopamine hit.
Uh-huh.
There is an addiction. There is an addiction to that sense of the false self. And this is what self-sabotage is. We will give ourselves the experience, whether it's a frustration or sadness or anxiety, in order to feed that false identity to keep it in place. And I call it a reverse dopamine hit, which keeps us small and limited. So that's absolutely right. I just call it a reverse dopamine hit because it sounds cool or whatever, but that's exactly what it is. Now, it's very simple to bust through this. Okay. You just don't give in to the craving. Whatever that craving is. I've worked with people that crave the sense of failure. So they give themselves opportunities so they can quote unquote fail, so they can stay limited within the ego mind identity. So their sugar is a feeling of failure. Maybe someone else it's of anxiety, or someone else it's of depression, or someone else it's of loneliness or whatever. But so Guy, the remedy when the craving kicks in, right, is to simply realize that you're the awareness of the craving, not the craving. Just like the painter is not the painting. So we become aware of the craving. Now, through that detachment, we'll have some space between the I am and the craving. Now, as the craving comes up for whatever it is, doesn't matter. As that craving comes up, if you meet the craving with pure presence, meaning just observe it, just watch it. The I am is so powerful and so high frequency that it will alchemize the craving if you sit in the I am long enough. And this is how we can overcome depression, anxiety, sugar, makes no difference. When we operate this way, this is actually how we can transcend all of that by meeting it with pure presence, which will alchemize the craving, and you will liberate yourself from the self-sabotage that has led up to the reverse dopamine hit, which keeps us going back into the limited self.
Yeah. I guess the key to all that is that you got to be fully in, haven't you? You got to like go, I want to do this, so I'm going to participate. I'm willing to change. Otherwise, we're going to fall back into our old story all the time. Because the one of the greatest challenges is that mind coming up, isn't it? Is that little self-sabotage in part. You know, how did you get through it? Did you but you must have had those challenges too, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all have those challenges. I came into this incarnation very detached. I was leaving my body as a kid and doing all these things. So I was really never under the illusion or delusion that I am this human experience and that I am the body mind. I'm something other than that actually leaves this suit, right? And then I come back into the suit to have the full immersion experience of being human. But no one has to be a mystic or a master to do this. It just takes diligence in terms of working with yourself properly. And the most important thing to realize is that you are the awareness of what is going on. And once we get the space, God, if we identify with every craving, every feeling, every thought, we've lost control. There's no sovereignty and there's no freedom and there's no ability to transcend these things because we're identifying with what we're aware of. So if we can all sit in the understanding that we're the awareness of something and that we don't have to act upon it. We don't have to act upon it. This is how we overcome everything. This is the addiction. The strongest addiction is the addiction of identity. That's the hardest one to break, right? My thoughts, my feelings, my story, right? That ownership, that attachment. Now, if we can root ourselves in the present and these things pop up, thoughts, emotions, feelings, cravings, they pop up, there'll be the tangible recognition that you're something other than those things. And once you recognize that you're not those things, they won't rule your life. And once they don't rule your life, you can now own your own mind. And now this life becomes your own.
That really resonates. You know, it really got me thinking about See, my biggest struggle was that identity self. And there's been, when I sold my supplement company to step out of that, I thought, no, I'm not that identity. And I just fell apart, mate. Like, it was just unbelievable, really. Even though I told myself the whole time, I'm not entwined. That's not my identity, you know, and there was something feeding me that I must strive to work. I must push. I must set goals. I must actually do more, and easily getting caught up in that identity then, which is then obviously deflecting from other things maybe I need to be addressing and looking at to be more present in this moment. I mean, it's pretty slippery, the old belief system. And I recall as well, and this leading into question, I keep referring to Bruce Lipton only because he's done a lot of work on it. But I remember him saying, because I was like, well, what are my limiting beliefs like it? And he said, well, just look at your life. And every choice point that you've made has been driven by something subconscious. So you can look at your relationships. Are you happy with it? Look at your financial situation, where you live, your environment, your education. Everything is being driven from that. To start to break that down, even though we might be completely unaware, this never even come into our conscious mind once. What do you suggest? I know you go deeply into it, the book, but what do you suggest we can start doing if there are aspects of ourselves or our lives that we are starting to bubble to the surface, that are starting to come into our awareness, to go, actually, maybe I do need to not change trajectory here. And
the only way is to do the work, because the bombardment of low frequency electromagnetic interference is perpetual. And it goes so far beyond human comprehension and the five senses, and therefore the intellect. So the only way to break free is a level of diligence in terms of introspection. And the book lays out a very beautiful, robust process to do this. The only way to do it is to go after it like your life depends on it. And I mean it. So people get afraid of the D word, discipline. Right? So self-control and self-discipline. Now we learn self-control and self-discipline by working with ourselves optimally. Again, it's not caving into the thoughts, emotions, actions, and behaviors, because until we have recognized the I am for what it is, all of our thoughts, emotions, action, behaviors are in context to something we have aligned ourselves with: a belief, a concept, a role, so-called knowledge, or an experience. Now, none of those are the I am. They're way downstream for the I am. And one of the main ones that all of us have this hard time, and you were just talking about it, Guy, is this need, this fervent need for productivity, right? I got to do this. I got to, go. I got to do this, right? Okay. This is the slave mentality. Only a slave quantifies its existence through productivity. Just let that land for a second, right? So that is not the I am. The I am, the fractal of God, is whole and complete as it is. And it's only interested in exploring the depth of its unlimited nature. That has nothing to do with productivity. Nothing to do with productivity. So if we feel the compulsion to quantify our existence through how productive, how much of my to-do list did I check, whatever that is, right? Switch from, if we must quantify, switch from quantifying our existence by productivity to how present you have been throughout the day. How much of the I am, how much of the real you has been here today? That is an accomplishment worth going after. How present have I been today? How much have I avoided past, future, past, future, past, future? How much of me have I experienced directly today? And just start that way. That is a very worthy achievement. From my perspective, that is the worthiest achievement.
Why do you feel? Yeah, everything. I'm just like nodding my head, going, "Oh, that's gold." Why do you feel people are frightened to go there?
Great question. Okay. The ego mind identity, the EMI, okay, is bankrupt. Okay. The egoic mind, the finite mind, the lower consciousness doesn't authentically know anything, which is why the finite mind constantly wants more and more and more information, because it doesn't authentically, intrinsically know anything. It's bankrupt. So it clings, Guy, to everything for a sense of a false self, for a sense of itself. Because as soon as we detach and let go, the ego mind disappears and we recognize that it has nothing. So its defense mechanism is to reach for anything. Let me hold on to this belief. Let me hold on to this experience that I had. Let me hold on to this concept. Let me hold on to this so-called knowledge that I read or saw. It holds on out of fear, because as soon as it stops holding on, it disappears. So it's a fear-driven activity because there's nothing there. It's completely bankrupt. So if it doesn't hold on to anything, it has a panic. The key, it has a real breakdown. So the key is to observe the breakdown. Just observe, like we talked about, let the I am completely be aware of it, and the I am will alchemize that fear, because fear can only exist in the absence of the divine. The I am has no real fear. You're immortal and you're perfect. It's a fractal of God. The I am has no fear. None. So when we actually taste that tangibly, it will alchemize all the fears of the electromagnetic interference or the ego mind identity.
Yeah, it begins to transmute, doesn't it? It's fascinating. And I keep reflecting on my journey, but we have a saying when we run our retreats and workshops, we reveal, we feel, and then we heal. So to sit with those feelings and stay detached and not make them mean something or project something is slippery. It's really challenging to do.
Oh,
because
it's without a doubt. Yep.
Yeah. And that's the art of it. But when we feel the body finally give up or relinquish that grasp, like you say, and that alchemy occurs and that transmute, that's life changing. I mean, that's what changed my life, hands down. Once I relate to my body and my emotions differently to how I'd been conditioned, then everything changes without a doubt.
Yeah, you got it. That's beautiful. I love that. That's I couldn't agree more. And another thing that we're doing when we actually do what you just said that you do on your retreats, we're going from reacting to responding.
Yeah.
Right. So reacting to this thought, this feeling, right? Reacting, right? The predictive programming. That's your patterned mind. That's your subconscious patterned mind. That's what that is. That's what reacts, right? The I am responds. And one of the responses that we can have is to simply let it alchemize. And this is the liberation. This is what is life transforming. In fact, I'd even go on to say that it's not your life until you do this. It's someone else's or something else's.
Wow.
So we want to be very careful about forming an attachment to anything, because that attachment is our energy. And now we're connected to something, which means we're no longer experiencing ourselves and we're no longer evolving our consciousness. We are now attached to something, which means we have now locked ourselves in and we're not moving forward at all anymore. So attachment, no. Experiencing those things that you just said, yes, those are all aspects of the self, because we are a supremely high frequency being. Joy, peace, happiness, compassion, love. This is our natural state. Now, we're attuned to this body, and the body is attuned to the lower frequencies. And because we're attuned to the body and the body is attuned to the lower frequencies, we're having a low frequency experience. So those things we almost have to cultivate. Even though they're inside us, we have to go within meditation and cultivate the connection to what we really are. And then those things start to happen naturally. As you just said, that's what you're drawn to, because that is our natural state. But Jeff, not attachments, because what we are is already whole and complete. And our own attachment would just be a misperception, a misunderstanding, and then a misidentification with something. So we've all heard, well, maybe not, we haven't all heard, but I am is what we really are. That's the only statement that we can make that is eternally true. Just those two words, I am. Now, anything that you tack onto that will actually be false, because anything you tack onto that comes after the I am. And so I say that to reference the idea of attaching ourselves to anything, to a feeling, to an emotion, to this, to that, to this realm, to that realm. It's not necessary because we are all already perfect, whole, and complete as we are.